Welcome to another round of the Twisted Metal Tournament. After a long string of lightweight vehicles, we're returning to where we started with the heavily armored SWAT van, Outlaw. Mostly for thematic reasons. Same sort of thematic reasons I was avoiding by not taking Junkyard Dog to the junkyard. Outlaw's driver is Agent Stone, an officer of the law, so that's already working against him. But maybe he'll be murderous enough to endear himself to Calypso.
2 years I'd been locked away. Not a day went by I didn't pray to God. But I knew even He wouldn't forgive me for what I'd done. See, God only has time for those who deserve His mercy. I just didn't qualify. But then one day I had this visitor. I knew Calypso by reputation. You don't spend 10 years on the force without knowing every dirtbag in Midtown. Seems he wanted me in his contest. He said if I won, he'd ease my pain. My God, he knew. How could he have known? Calypso said if I won the game, I'd get a chance to undo the big mistake that was eating at my soul. Redemption. That's a big thing to offer a man without a hope in hell. How can I refuse?
So he's a cop, and he's seeking redemption. That is 2 strikes against our hero's odds of a happy ending. He must have some kind of killer instinct to have landed himself here, though, and as long as he doesn't turn it on himself, it'll serve us well. Certainly gonna need it, because what we have today is a level and a half. It's a very interesting series of challenges that awaits us before we can claim our prize. First and foremost, we find ourselves locked in a very small room with 2 bloodthirsty opponents bearing down on us. It's actually luck of the draw which 2 opponents that'll be, and we drew very poorly. Crazy 8 and Roadkill are both very fast and can dodge most of our attacks, but their specials benefit greatly from having their targets cornered. This is where playing as a heavily armored vehicle like Outlaw has more than just thematic uses. Your options here are to run laps around the very outside of the arena and pray for this nightmare to end, or take your lumps, try to return fire, maybe take an enemy with you. I say take someone with me because it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that I'm gonna die here. I almost always lose a life in this room, although I recall the first time I played this level as Mr. Grimm, I lost all 3 of my lives in this room. That was quite intimidating. Now, just because the doors are open doesn't mean we're home free. We need to, first of all, have foreknowledge of where the health pickups are and make a break for them immediately. Arm up a little, and try to kill at least one of the enemies who was locked in that cage with us before. Because with the 2 new enemies that have appeared, the deck of the ship is no less crowded than the inside of the cell block was. Get things cleaned up a little bit. Each ramp has a health pickup at the top of it, as well as some weapons to rearm with. Big problem with that cell block is that there's only a handful of weapons available, and a lot of them get picked up by the enemy. Once we're out here, there's enough pickups that we can at least retaliate a little bit. Once again, pretty bad draw getting Axel up here, just because Axel's always a pain in the ass. There's the second of our caged opponents down. It would seem that we're doing pretty well, but we've only met half of our enemies so far. If we're down to our last light before the rest of them even show up, we're going to be in a pretty bad situation. So I've got to resort to the cowardly tactic of avoidance. Even that's not serving me too well. The only reason I'm alive right now is because Axel's special missed me while I was in midair. So I'm just jumping at the fences, desperately trying to get out, and finally they fall. This will, at long last, grant us access to the entirety of the level, which includes many health pickups and our recharge stations if we live long enough to get to them. Destroying the guard tower brings down the drawbridge that the boat passed underneath, which has plenty of useful pickups, and it attaches to the area over the cell block, just in case we want to go back to that hellhole. Now though, I just want to kill Axel. Been a thorn in my side for way too long. Fortunately, Sweet Tooth arrives just in time to absorb his killing blows, but I'm going to stay on top of him. One more down, plenty more to go. But we've got a lot of area to explore, which is just what we need, because it gives us a lot of escape routes. On top of the prison itself is our first recharge station. You can see on the map there's another one well below us, off in a distant corner. But up here is safe enough for now. I haven't said much about Outlaw's special, despite having used it many times at this point. It's very similar to Shadow's alternate special with the gunner turret on top of the vehicle, but with the added bonus of a laser sight. As long as that is locked onto an enemy, which is directly in front of you, you can hammer on the fire button and it'll shoot missiles. That there's what a fully charged reticle can do. Only 8 of the 10 missiles hit, because they killed Grim before the last 2 hit. Outlaw's special missiles are not nearly as effective. They're about equivalent to homing missiles, which are pretty low damage, but they add up. And all the way down here, in front of the hull of the ship, where it landed, is where we'll find even more health pickups. And that health pickup there indicates where our secret for the level is. If we've learned the language of this game, we can fire a missile at the hull. It reveals a hidden panel. Within we find the ship's maximum security block, which houses the final unlockable vehicle, besides Minion of course, Manslaughter. We've killed him plenty of times at this point, but now we get to drive as him, which is a dubious honor. I detest Manslaughter. Ironically, the most difficult thing that I can recall about this game is playing as Manslaughter in the prison passage level. Luckily, I won't have to do it ever again, because I've done it before. For now, though, we can focus on vehicles that are actually trying to kill us. You can compare our special to that of Sweet Tooth. It comes up pretty short, but it's at least comparable. We did about maybe a third of his health in a single special. Enough to take care of him. Now, I've never shown a machine gun overheat in this game yet. If you watch the little green dot next to our life counter, finally goes to a flashing red after about 20 seconds of holding the machine gun, and then finally goes completely red to signify that we've overheated. And maybe 5 to 10 seconds later, we can use the machine gun again. Not entirely sure why there is a machine gun overheat mechanic in this game. It really doesn't come up very often. It's also a mechanic involving the freeze special attack. Very ridiculous one. If you freeze an enemy who is already frozen, you yourself get frozen instead. It's what the game calls a cheap shot, and I only know of its existence because it's listed in the game's manual. In all my time spent playing this game, I've never actually seen it happen, because firing a freeze shot takes up more than half of your energy bar, so it's literally impossible to fire them in quick enough succession to freeze an opponent you froze yourself. It's pretty unlikely to freeze an opponent that an enemy froze, so might be something that comes up in the game's multiplayer, which is definitely something they had in mind when designing this game. Very shortly after its release, they released Twisted Metal Black Online, which is a version of this game that was made freely available to anyone who owned a PlayStation 2 network adapter. It contained no single-player elements whatsoever, but, as the title strongly implies, you were able to play it online. My understanding is that it never got a very strong player base because the barrier of entry in this game is ridiculously high, as is the skill cap, so new players would find experienced players completely insurmountable and quit pretty quickly. It's unfortunate because it's a brilliant idea. This game is excellently balanced for multiplayer. There I was trying to lure an enemy into the blimp attack, the environmental attack for this level, but they don't really like to comply. Just something that I imagine real-life players would not have as much of a problem with. You really get to employ more strategy if you weren't dealing with a somewhat lacking AI, or at least a pretty random, unpredictable AI. We're down to only 2 opponents, doing decent on health ourselves. Even still, we've seen enough times by now that 2 enemies on the deck of that ship is deadly. I'm gonna try to move to a more advantageous position. Take a lot of fire along the way. Got another one of those environmental pickups though. So while we lure someone up here, we can get some more of those health pickups. There's quite a few scattered around this gigantic level. There's a less than ideal use, but we showed it off anyway. Hopefully we've got enough juice left in us in this last life to clean up what's left of our enemies. They are completely inseparable though, which is never a good thing. But they're nice small vehicles. We can rely on the ramming power of our gigantic SWAT vehicle. More heavily armored your car is, the more likely you are to deal a lot of damage by ramming into people. And our slight health advantage earned a stone-cold victory for Agent Stone. Even for as long as that took, I'm kind of surprised we completed it that quickly. I'm used to getting beaten to a pulp during the first 2 sections and then having to play cat and mouse with the many remaining opponents for the rest of the level. But since having the home field advantage turned out to be more useful than I expected, it's time to check out another chapter of our story.
As I drifted away, the torment began again. The same torment I'd endured 1,000 nights and days before. I began to remember. It happened a couple of years back. We were out across from the Northside Apartments. There'd been reports of terrorist activity in the building. When we got there, we found some kind of doomsday cult had set up shop inside. We were sent there to take them out. These guys were real psychos, desperate as hell, holed up like rats in a cage. But now their little hideaway was a kill zone, and I had them right in my sights. I'd dealt with a lot of dirtbags before, but for some reason, this was different.
All units open fire! Open fire! Shoot to kill!
All these years trying to make a difference, and for what? So that we could arrest these scum suckers and watch them walk free the same afternoon? My rage got the better of me. I couldn't focus. I wanted to send these killers to hell where they belonged. I got them. But not before I made the biggest mistake of my life. I'd let my emotions cloud my judgment. It cost me, but it cost someone else even more. Oh my God, what had I done? Those people were dead, and it was all my fault. There was only one way out. But that way was closed. I was going to have to live with it for the rest of my life, and nothing I could do would ever take away the pain. Until now.
Some serious rage issues have resulted in some serious guilt for our now retired sniper. We did see that he was able to deal quite effectively with John Doe's gang of white supremacists. In fact, for all we know, that was actually John Doe that he shot down, considering how asynchronous these storylines can be. Right now, though, our focus is on saving lives. I'm not sure what Agent Stone hopes Calypso can do for a family that's been dead for years, but it's right about time to find out.
I had won the contest. Now it was time to see if the rumors were true. Did Calypso really have the power to give me a second chance? He asked if I really wanted a second chance, if I understood the risks. But I wasn't going to screw up twice. This time, it was all going to work out. I demanded my prize. And just like that, I was back. I knew what to do this time. I had to contain my anger. I had to focus. That little girl was going to be safe. It was my sworn duty, both to her and to myself.
He's drawing a weapon. All units open fire. Open fire. Shoot to kill.
I made sure every single bullet found the right target this time. That dirtbag went down like a puppet with his strings cut.
Terrorist is down. Terrorist is down. Great shooting, Agent. Second team, move it.
But it wasn't over. Not until I knew those people were safe. They were shaken but alive. Calypso had done it. I never thought it could be
All
like...
units, target is not down. Target is still hot.
I was so close to making it right.
Agent Stone, report in. Are you hit?
Tragically, the cost of heroism is once again death. Stone got what he had truly wanted after that failed sniping mission, a bullet to the head. And we, the player, learned an unspoken rule of the tournament. Always use your wish to kill as much as you can, or you will be expected to pay the deficit.